Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Actualize Your Intentions with the Three Pillars of Qigong. Explore a fusion of medical, martial, and spiritual practices for increased energy, resilience, and strength. My name is Stephen Dynam. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really thrilled to be on a journey of discovery with you and really harvesting some of the most profound insights and practices from this ancient, beautiful lineage of Qigong that has revealed so much about our deeper nature and how to work with our body, our energy in a way that's grounded and evolutionary and that leads us to just a better life. So we're going to get to explore with a remarkable teacher. His name is Sifu Matthew Cohen. He's the founder of Sacred Energy Arts, and he's taught for Shift before, and we welcome him back because I really think he has this unique fusion at the interface of multiple different Qigong streams. We're going to hear a little bit about why that's important today. So Matthew, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Stephen. Really happy to be here, and it's nice to see you again.
Great. Well, I want everyone to know we're going to have this time. We're going to dive deep into some cool insights and practice together. And we also have a brand new program coming with Sifu Matthew in a few weeks. It's called Three Archetypal Pillars of Qigong, and we'll share about that towards the end of the hour. So more to come. So Matthew, I wonder if you could begin our journey today to really talk a little bit about why you were drawn to all three of these different wings of Qigong, medical, spiritual, and martial, and why having an understanding or some relationship with each is so valuable.
Well, I was thinking about this morning a little bit, and my thought was I went all the way back. So I was born 3 months early in a incubator for 3 months. I was 2 pounds and wasn't supposed to live, and made it, obviously. And I thought about that, like after that period of isolation, and I was also born into kind of a tough neighborhood, and spent a lot of time alone, even though I had older brothers. And I gravitated as a young boy and later as a young man towards healing practices because it made me feel connected. It made me feel comfortable in my skin. I gravitated towards touch, like body work. I think I needed that from a very early age. So does the practice choose us, or do we choose the practice? I think both. And that was the first thought this morning was, okay, all the way back from the very beginning, I gravitated towards practices that make me feel comfortable in my skin, practices that allow me to feel more energetic and feel present. And Qigong does that. And I feel like I also love trinities. I like this idea of threes. And in Qigong, there's 3 pillars. There are many pillars, but the 3 that I'm thinking of right now and working with right now a lot are martial and spiritual and healing. And those are very important to me. And I gravitated from really young age towards them. Also was into dance. I was into martial arts. I was into surfing. I was into a lot of different things. Some of it may have been ADD and like wanting knowledge, wanting wisdom. I always wanted to have experience, and doing a lot of varied things allowed me to have a wide scope. And now that I've been practicing for a long time, the scope is getting very narrow. And Qigong, in a sense, is a way to both broaden the scope so that there's many aspects of Qigong and many places in Qigong one can go. But it also narrows the scope because for me, that practice is really about truth. It's about experience, and it's about vitality. So it's both widening and narrowing. And I think it went all the way back to birth, if I'm really looking at it, maybe from that first experience.
It's really interesting to connect all the way to birth and that you're, addressing this sort of core first challenge with these practices. So maybe it'd be good for just to give a little bit of overview of, because I think probably most people will gravitate towards one of these pillars or the other for various reasons. But why have you seen that it's like some understanding and practice of each actually creates a fuller picture for our healing and transformation?
So back to the trinities, back to these archetypes, there is, the way I look at it, 3 pillars. So one pillar is martial, one pillar is healing, and one pillar is spiritual. So there's a trinity there. The martial pillar, because I was a martial artist from young age. As I said, I was small in a tough neighborhood. I started out like most boys and wanted to be like Bruce Lee and, learn to defend myself. And as I got deeper into the practices revealed other things to me about problem solving, about connecting to that aspect of myself that can problem solve, which is really what the martial artist does. The original term in China is wushu, to stop the sword or to stop violence. So started out in martial arts to defend myself and moved over time into practices for health. So that particular pillar, the martial pillar, relates to the lower dantian, this energy center below the navel, and it's the body center. So it's a really good place to be embodied. It's a really good place to be active and to not necessarily, you don't have to fight. You don't have to be a martial artist to learn martial Qigong. It prepares the mind and body to do anything. So it allows us to be much more resilient, much more adaptable. And for me, that pillar is very important. Moving up to the middle dantian, or the heart center. Heart center is for love, compassion, of course, emotional center. And that to me relates to the healer. So the healer aspect in this practice is about the inner physician, the part of us that can heal, the part of us that can help ourselves feel whole, and then eventually help others. The way I was taught is first you get yourself strong and you heal yourself. And then once you heal yourself, you can then help others. So to become a teacher, to become a body worker, an acupuncturist, the first thing to do is to get yourself strong and connected to your heart. So that's the healer aspect. And there's two parts there. One is for self and the other is for the community. And then the third dantian, or upper center, is related to the spiritual, the visionary, the mystic, the seer, the one that can see down the road, the shaman, the one that can see through fog, see through the things that are cluttered in our lives. It might relate to coaching these days, to have inner vision and insight. Ultimately, they're all one, of course, because it's like, how do you separate water from wet? We're all, it's one practice. But looking at these pillars individually, I find can be very useful because each one has an archetypal personality. Each one is like a different friend. So when I want to feel connected to myself in an embodied way and have to take action, I'll look to the lower dantian, I'll look to the warrior, I'll look to those practices. When I want to move into my heart more and have less resistance, I'll move into the practices for the medical and for my heart, emotional resiliency, emotional fluency. And when I want to see things that I might not be able to see, both in a more yang way, more problem solving in a sense of action, I'll go to the third eye. When I want to go in for insight, I'll also go there. So what's kind of fun about these is each one you can look at actively or receptively. So in a sense, each part of these areas of the body has more than one function archetypally, a yin and a yang function, an introspection and or endogenous and a exogenous expression. So I don't know, there's a lot there, but that's why that's a little short view.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, the mapping onto the different dantians and how each is sort of has a zone of specialty. I still feel like it would be useful a little bit more the yin and the yang dimension of each. It would be interesting to explore a little bit more so we understand like why cultivating that balance or at least fluidity is really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So sometimes it's important for, say, yin practices to go inward and to be introspective. So say in Qigong, there's a practice called Wuji, and it's very common. Wuji means no limits. It means emptiness. It's that place before experience, before the Big Bang. It's the primal place where you're empty, open, and receptive. And in that place, there's no resistance. There's just possibility. And it's a really good place to go in meditation, right? So sometimes when I want to be contemplative, I'll go there. And that's a place you can go from the warrior, the healer, or the visionary. So it's the more yin, soft, feminine place of creation, of creativity, of opportunity, of maybe a place of the artist. So it can be looked at in each of these zones. Now, if I want to then, from that place of introspection, go out and get up and make a sandwich, go to work, speak to you, become active again, then I'll look at the other side. So one lens is looking in, and that's the more contemplative, drawing in, absorbing inward, and the other is going out and into the world, and that's the more yang. So in a sense, you can look at each of these archetypes from at least two lenses, one the active or yang or directed, and the other the introspective or yin. Might look at it also like this. If you're in a gym, sometimes we want to get stronger and lift weights and do things that are more active and take the energy up. Or maybe I'm low and depressed and I want to bring my energy up. Then I'll use the yang aspect of these archetypes and the yang aspect of Qigong, even relating to breathing. I might be more dynamic in my breath and bring my energy up. Sometimes I want to drop my energy down, maybe do less strength building practices, more yin practices. Could be yoga, could be Qigong, could be meditation, could be taking the energy down because I'm agitated or maybe there's anxiety. So that would be a way to use the yin to drop down. And then ultimately there's going to be a place where we level out. And that'll be the more balanced practices. Once we find a place where we're level, like, oh, can I hold that space? Can I keep it? And having an idea of when one is I'm down or when one is a little low and how to bring the energy up, or when we're up and how to bring it back down in very simple, practical ways will allow us to regulate our energy, which is the hallmark of Qigong. So
it's a great overlay. And how does this then connect with the 5 elements? How do they relate to the different dantians and the balancing of the yin and the yang?
So in Qigong, let's go to the martial practices. In martial arts in China and in Qigong, you have practices that allow us to become, say, a better martial artist. One of the practices relates to the 5 elements. It's called Xing Yi. So you're learning how to use water, fire, metal, earth, and wood, the 5 elements that compose the body, that compose the universe from this old perspective. It's not old, but ancient and current perspective. Each of these elements relates to an organ, an emotion, a time of day, etc. And when they're balanced, all 5 elements in harmony, we have radiant health. We have health beyond danger. We have vitality. So that's one pillar, and it can be used in a healing way from the medical Qigong practice to allow us to be healthy. Or if you're bringing that to, say, the dantian, the lower dantian, the warrior, it can be used to defend yourself, friends, or family. So in ancient China, people practiced the 5 elements to get healthy, and then the warriors would practice to defend or protect idea or family member. So you can use it for both healing practices internally and for more vital practices externally in the sense of like athletics or things. The Tai Chi practices relate to yin and yang, and that's also looking for balance both in the body and then martially for expression. And the Bagua practices also, which I'll introduce, relate to, say, the 8 trigrams of the I Ching for healing, and they relate to martial. So what's beautiful about this is the 5 elements, the yin yang, the 8 trigrams, all of these kind of classic practices from China that relate to Qigong relate to health. And they have an outward expression martially or creatively. So you can look at them from all 3 of these dantians, lower, middle, and upper. You can look at them from the warrior, the healer, and the visionary. So really, the 5 elements is a beautiful way, I think, to allow yourself to have vision. So for instance, if I'm looking at the 5 elements through the visionary aspect of the third eye, right? Place of insight, place of inner knowing, of creativity, of intuition, of seeing what's down the road, I might relate that to the wood element, which relates to the seeing, to the eyes, to the liver and the tendons and the ligaments, but also clear vision. So you can do movements in Qigong that relate to strengthening the wood element that will help your eyes, literally, but they'll also help your vision, both seeing what's down the road and insight, inner vision, not to get too, spiritual about it or metaphysical, but I believe that when we practice, our vision internally opens and we get more clear sight. Then you can also take that same practice and do it martially from the warrior perspective to have more vitality and have more strength, have more connections, have more functional mobility. So there's an internal way and there's an external way to practice.
Hmm. Well, I think it's a beautiful vision, and there's obviously a lot of different dimensions to it. So let's bring it down to like, how do you start to build a practice that has this level of balance and integration of these three different pillars?
Well, the first thing is intention. So if I'm starting to do something, and we'll work with this today with how to use intention in many different ways. And I think the beauty of this practice is knowing how to use your intention to amplify an exercise and then to utilize that exercise in more than one way. So you can do one exercise to heal. Let's say I'm doing a clearing exercise. The first thing I do is drop my hands down. Most of you at home have seen this. And you see it with, Qigong, you see it with Kung Fu Panda, right? So I'm dropping my hands down. That's the basic movement. Now, if I do that same movement with a different intention, and my hands are like a screen on a French press, right? And we take the hands down. Now, when the screen goes down, I'm getting a very good cup of tea or coffee with no bitterness. I'm filtering any stress, any anxiety, any negativity, any fear out of my system by using my intention to move the energy down. Now, if I do that again, from moving it to the lower center, the body center, right? That's going to connect me to that warrior. And I can do the same practice to drop my energy down and ground me so that I can go about my day with more connection to my dantian and my center. I can do that same practice again and bring energy into my heart by changing my intention and feeding my heart so it remains open and clear and full and bright and strong. Or I can do that same practice again to feed my third eye so that I have clear insight and clear vision. So essentially it was the same choreography, the same architecture, but it changed based in my intention. And that's what makes it so beautiful to me. That's what makes Qigong so lovely and powerful.
Yeah, I love how you're tethering the movements with the intention and how that can really change the outcome. I wonder if you want to say anything about the breath and how you're speaking right now, obviously, so you're not doing as much the breath or even sound practice. How does that come in and complement what you're doing in terms of movement and intention?
Okay, that's such a fun thing to talk about. So our breath is our first and last experience, right? It's the very first thing we do when we get here. It's the very last thing we do before we check out. It's something that happens all the time, but as soon as we turn our attention to it and change that lens, it becomes so powerful. So in general, there's two approaches I'll take. One is more yin again, and one is a little bit more yang. So the yin would be you have a contract with yourself, let's say, or a subtext running that says, my breath is going to be smooth and calm and fine while I speak to you, Stephen, this whole time. When I breathe in, I gather energy. When I exhale, I let go of anything that doesn't serve me, known or unknown, and I'm connected. That's the subtext. That's running while I speak, while I practice. And that's one very yin, soft way to have the breath support us throughout our whole life. And in a sense, that way the breath is a Qigong practice. Inhale, gather energy. Exhale, let go of what doesn't serve. Keep it soft and gentle. Then when I add movement, the movement is happening and the breath is happening and they find each other. I'm not marrying my breath with my movement. So that's one thing I'll dive deep into the 7-week course. The other side would be to allow the breath to be more active. So now I'm changing my lens, changing my intention, and I'm guiding my movement with my breath, inhaling through the nose. In this case, exhaling through the nose for now. And as I exhale, I'm guiding the qi down through my body and through the channels and connecting to my breath. So in that way, the breath can become very potent. It can be this practice that runs through our whole life and allows us to get energy when we inhale and de-stress as we exhale. And when we exhale, we can also store energy in reservoirs in the body, which is fascinating. You can store it in your dantian, this energy center below the navel. You can store it in your long bones. So exhales work like a bank account, right? You depositing currency in the form of chi into the body when you exhale. So that's a really interesting way I think that the breath becomes an ally. The other practice is when we add sound, because everything is light and sound from this perspective, right? The whole universe, one verse, one song. There's many creation myths. There's many stories that start with the universe as breath or as sound. The name of God is also breath in many traditions. So the breath and the sound, for instance, if I simply hum, I can bring it down to the heart, down to the solar plexus, down to the belly, or up to the third eye. When I start to bring the breath up and down with humming, it will allow different centers to open, and it will shake the vibration of the breath will shake stagnation loose into the body, into the bloodstream, into the body, and then have it move out in the form of toxins. So the shaking of the humming of the breath is like rattling a drum, which shaman do a lot in healing. Many traditions create vibration to heal. So the sound of Om or the sound of a conch blowing, right? The sound of creation in many traditions is the sound of the breath. When you inhale, you gather energy. When you exhale, you let go of tension. But when you exhale, if you listen carefully, this is a yogic thing that I think is so beautiful. In the yogic tradition, the word so hum, I am that, is incorporated into the breath. And when you inhale, there's this so, and then the hum on the exhale, if I exaggerate it, is this connecting to spirit. Every time you exhale, there's this gentle hum that allows you to connect to the primal sound that connects us to healing, connects us to ourself. So using tones in Qigong and in yoga and in shamanic work have been around forever, and allowing the body to just vibrate in specific ways can tune the body like you would tune an instrument with a tuning fork. The sound tunes us. So a musician wouldn't go on stage without tuning her piano or guitar. If we practice in the morning, we tune our body, and sound can help us do that. Also stimulates the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, which allows us to go parasympathetic, the part of the nervous system that allows us to unwind, to downregulate, to relax. So we'll work with sound, we'll work with light as well. A lot of Qigong works with light. So and a moment ago, you saw me bring my hands down like the screen on a press. My first intention is to clear. If I then decide that I want to gather energy, I can gather energy in the form of thought and light and bring white light, or some of you might like rose gold, which is healing, into the body. And you're not going to necessarily see this, but I'm imagining rose gold light flood my body now. And that light both will calm me down, warm me up, and begin to heal my body if there's any places that are not healed. So working with sound and light, I think can be quite lovely.
That's great. Really beautiful explanations. And I want to invite you to give us a deeper demonstration where we can all participate in how it comes together now.
Okay, cool. I love that. This first demo, I'll give you a little bit of backstory. It's called silkworm hand, but when Chinese say hand, often in Kung Fu, it could mean body, or like Tai Chi Chuan, supreme ultimate fist, or supreme ultimate boxing. The fist is the whole being, or you hear of Bagua Zhang. The palm is the whole being. So in this case, it's called silkworm hand because my hand looks kind of like a silkworm, but it's going to affect my whole being. So that's the first thing for you guys to know. I learned this from Duanzi Liang, who was a Qigong master from China. And when he first taught me this method, it really unlocked and opened a whole new way of looking for me and a whole new way of perceiving. And it started to shift the way I look at the world. So I'll explain it and then we'll do it together. One idea is that when I'm moving my hand like this, I just learned the choreography first. sort of like Hawaiian dancer, right? He just taught me that, okay, that's the movement, kind of like a silkworm. And then he said, okay, now if you change your intention, this can relate to, remember I talked about the wood element, the liver, and the wood element can relate to healing anger, but it can also relate to vision. It can relate to tendons. It can relate to ligaments. So now that movement becomes a movement for my tendons and ligaments. It also relates to expansion and consolidation, which is what humans do. We expand. That's the main thing we do, right? And the universe expands and then it consolidates. So it's relating to expansion, consolidation. It's relating to the liver and the wood element. Then if you do massage, it's relating to doing massage on someone physically. If you're off body doing work with someone like Reiki or Qigong healing, you can do the same motion to connect to their etheric field. Or, God forbid, if someone attacked you, you could do this to push them away or strike. So the same motion is used many different ways. So I'll take you guys through a little practice. You can see how you can do it. It's quite fun. All right, so I'm going to stand up. I want you to know that we'll just do a few minutes of this. You could do sitting, you can do it in a chair, you can do it on a cushion. You don't have to stand. I'm just going to stand to show it to you this way. So feel free to sit or to stand or to simply watch and be in the experience that way. Okay. So I'm going to stand up. My feet are parallel, knees are soft, tailbones dropped, crown is lifted, heart is relaxed. First thing I want to do, and I'd like you guys to do, is set an intention that when you do this, you're dropping an anchor, like you're on a ship and you drop an anchor to stay where you are. So no matter what you do in the practice, when you're working with Qigong, if you go somewhere physically, energetically, emotionally, spiritually, if you travel, you can always come back into your body. You make that contract with yourself that you're always able to come back to this time, this space, here and now. So take a moment, use your intention, drop that anchor that allows you to be in your feet and in your body here and now. Start to connect to your breath, if you would. Allow the breath to be gentle, calm, and fine. You can allow your eyes to open if you want to watch me. Otherwise, you can listen and keep them closed. My hands are going to come up. I'm going to inhale and open. And I'm going to exhale and bring my hands in and consolidate my energy. So I'm asking my energy to be present with me. Inhale and open. Exhale and close. And we're going to begin the silkworm motion through the arms. So if you're just learning this for the first time, follow me. My arms are going to open at the elbows, then the wrist, then the hand, then the fingers, like they're unfurling. And then as they close, notice my elbows draw in, then my palms, okay? Opening, shoulder, elbow, wrist, palm, fingers. Closing at the elbow, palm, and fingers. Two more. So this first motion is allowing us to expand out into the world, into the cosmos, into the universe, and then return to this present time here and now in this conversation with Stephen, myself, and all of you. Opening outward, expanding. Humans love to expand. And then returning to the lower dantian below the navel. Let's do one more. So the first thing to do when you're learning, at least with me, is learn the choreography, the architecture, the movement of the Qigong. Now, as you continue, change your intention, and you're going to do this in a way that affects and balances the wood element. It's going to balance your liver, the general of the body. It's going to help us harmonize emotions, in particular, heal any anger. It's going to allow tendons to be flexible, ligaments to be strong and our eyes to be very bright and clear and sharp, so we can see what's down the road and remember our purpose, why we're here on this third stone from the sun together. One more. Opening, expanding, and returning. Now we're going to change the intention as we do this, and I'm going to push down towards the earth and then float up towards the sky. In this particular expression, if you notice the hands, I could be giving energy. So I'm going to give energy to you guys at home. I'll give energy to my wife at work. I'll give energy to Stephen in Mexico. And I'm going to send some energy out to you guys. This would be energetic healing, because we know from Qigong and quantum physics that we can affect change far from our living room. So we get into coherence together and start to move together. So this would be for energetic healing, sending a little love to your heart from mine. Now, if I were to do this in a massage way with a client, I could use this same motion to affect change by pushing and grasping. Call that tui na, to push and to grasp. That's the Chinese massage. And then if I were to do this in Tai Chi, to gently push my training partner, or perhaps use it martially to stop someone from pushing me, then I could do the same motion as a gentle push. So one motion has many usages depending on how I organize my intent. This very last one now, I'm going to allow the whole silkworm hand to turn into a wave and unfurl. And the last way I'll use this is just coming in right now, so I said 5, but there's 6 for me, is the mystery. It's the one that I didn't plan on during this conversation, and it's the one that seems to be showing up. And that is that the movement can start to teach me, as a movement expression, what it does globally. So it comes from the earth and moves all the way to the sky, and it moves through my whole body to allow me to start to transform and move in harmony. Okay, I'm going to release. You can do the same. Bring the hands down. Remember the anchor. So returning here now, if you've traveled anywhere in your body, present time, together. All right, I'll come sit down.
Great, really clear demonstration. And yeah, I'd love to say, it's like, so how do you start building this into a daily practice that really integrates these 3 streams?
So I'll do this with the course, and I would say for you guys at home, if you're thinking about it, we'll get to that. But even if you're just starting to do this on your own in a practice, maybe you have a seated meditation practice and you don't do Qigong yet, or maybe your Qigong practice is standing, simple practice of standing. You can invite these archetypes in as allies. Set the anchor so that you're always safe, and you ask for the healer to show up. And maybe when you're sitting, doing your sitting practice, or you're standing, or maybe you have a set that you've learned from one of your teachers in Qigong, you ask that the inner physician come in, and you connect to your heart. And then that part of you that is the inner doctor will show up, and it will start to inform you from a heart level. And when you're doing your sitting practice or your standing practice or you're moving, it's going to feel different, because something will start to get unlocked in you through your intention and your invitation to open up that heart center. I'll share specific exercises you can do relating to the way I look at things from sacred energy arts that have recipes and actual exercises. But if you guys don't do that for whatever reason, right? You're just doing your thing, practice. This is a way to start. You invite with an open hand the archetype into Your heart. Okay, so you're working with the healer. The healer is the middle dantian. The healer is the heart. You invite it in, and it will start to speak to you. You can ask also that it speak to you, that you feel it and hear it in your heart. You can do this with the warrior, and you can do this with the visionary as well. So that would be a way to start. And then, of course, I'll share very specific exercises on how you work with these individually. And what's so unique is how they connect to each other, because ultimately the Trinity is one, right? We're looking at all three, but really it's us, right? We have all these archetypes within us. Of course, we have an inner healer, an inner physician, we have an inner visionary, and we have an inner warrior. And that's the beauty, is to introduce these to, I'm sure you guys all know yours already, but it's to introduce or reintroduce these aspects of yourself to yourself consciously. Like, okay, I want to meet my inner warrior. I want to meet my inner healer, my inner doctor, inner physician. I want to meet my inner seer, my inner visionary.
Love it. Is there a way that you like to sort of diagnose where we might be out of balance and need more extra attention out of those three, or is it just sort of where we're intuitively drawn?
Both, and certainly it's intuitive, but there is a diagnostic. Some of it will come through. First of all, let me back up a minute. I often start moving from head to heart to lower dantian. So there's a physical practice. In the course, each practice will have a drop-in meditation, a visualization, a breathing practice, a physical practice, time for Q&A. There's a template that I'll teach that same template in every section, but each section will focus on a different archetype, different aspect of these archetypes. So that's one thing. Moving from the head down to the heart and down to the dantian is one way that the journey starts, because oftentimes when we're practicing, you might feel like, some of you might feel like, oh man, I'm in my head right now. I'm heady. I can't stop thinking. So literally, when you practice, you can move from your head to your heart. And for some of you, that'll be better and more comfortable. But for others, you go, oh man, my heart, I'm feeling too tense, too much emotion. So you go down to your lower dantian. Now you're out of your thoughts, you're out of your emotions, you're into a quiet space. So part of the journey is to move from head to heart to dantian, to a quiet space, to an open space. And then from there, start to build from the ground up again. So then you introduce yourself to the warrior in a very safe place. And the warrior is not the violent aspect of us. I want to be very clear about that. It's the aspect of us that's grounded and gets things done. From there, once you're grounded enough, you can go back up into the heart and visit your heart and start to open, and then go back to the third eye to start to work with the more subtle practices. The Taoists have many, many subtle practices and many ways of looking at the world, not just through Qigong, but astrology, astronomy, feng shui, etc. Right? So you ground first, then you go to the emotional center, then you go up to the very subtle. So that would be one way to practice, sort of a template. Sometimes with diagnostics, one way is to hear where people are speaking from. So some people are more heady and they're trying to solve everything from their intellect, and it's very difficult for them to maybe get out of the way and get into a space of receptivity, trust, and knowledge. So I might say, okay, if someone comes in and they're really in their head, I might start by introducing them to the dantian and to the warrior, into that space where it's quiet. So depending on where they're moving from, someone else might come in very emotionally charged. And I wouldn't say, let's just start sitting, because there's too much going on in the heart. So we might, again, go down to the dantian and go for a walk and get moving with that martial practice and walking, walking, walking. Then as the chi gets settled, they can start to go back up to the heart and visit that place without such an emotional charge. So sometimes it's where the energy is most active and moving into a safe space from there. But more often than not, as I said, I'll drop in and go from head to heart to dantian, and then from the lower dantian, we'll slowly climb. Tai Chi has an expression, the ascension is predicated on the root. So you root first, like a tree, then you can ascend and grow. So we often start with the root, and once the seed opens, then it goes up.
It makes a lot of sense. I really love this integration of all three different streams. And I'm a big believer in what I call spiritual cross training. And so you're doing it within a lineage here of cross training different ways of being with Qigong, with energy, with your own system, so that you can really create a more integrated whole. Really love it. So thank you, Matthew. I want to spend some time now talking more explicitly about how people can go and really learn this method and make it their own, this integration that you're offering. And so let's talk about your upcoming program. So Sifu Matthew has agreed to teach a brand new program for Shift. It's called 3 Archetypal Pillars of Qigong. Access the power of the warrior, the healer, and the visionary to age powerfully and gracefully. You can find it laid out in detail at 3pillarqigong.com. 3 is the number 3, 3pillarqigong, Qigong.com. It's a 7-week program, and it's open to anybody who is curious, drawn, and wants to just engage this practice. And so if you have a Qigong practice, great. If you don't need to have that foundation. It's really going to sort of set those foundations of how to access these 3 pillars in parallel and integrate that in your body, mind, and life. So Matthew, I'd love for you to share a little bit on a high level first about your intentions and what people will come away from the program with, and then I'll read out the module titles and you can give us a preview of what's coming in each.
Okay, cool. I like that you said like spiritual cross training, energetic cross training. At some point, I'd love to hear your intent around that, because obviously you've created this whole network, which I've been thankful to be a part of. And one thing I talked to you about last time, a year ago, whenever it was, that I really appreciate about what you're creating and have created in the Shift Network is this multidisciplinary approach to healing. You know, when I look at the network, I see people doing Qigong, yoga, visionary work, energetic work, counseling, all kinds of trauma healing. There's so much going on. And yet with that wide net, it's all looking to me at freedom. It's all looking at having non-resistant patterns, having free flow of energy. So I dig it. I love that. And Sacred Energy Arts is kind of similar. It's a multidisciplinary approach to health and self-development. And it's drawn from all of these things that I've been engaging in since I was young: dance and Qigong and martial arts and yoga. And I've been playing with these for a long time, this Trinity. And when we talked about doing this course, I thought I'd love to put together specifically 7 weeks for you guys based in this Trinity. So it is very much energetic cross training. I like that. Using many things as one.
Yeah, we're very aligned in those intentions. So I'm glad. So module 1 is called Access Clear Vision and Power Within, and Strengthen Your Body, Open Your Heart, and Focus Your Mind with the Visionary Archetype.
So body, mind, and heart, again, the 3 dantians I talked about. The visionary, the way I'm setting this up is we start with the visionary, and it's the visionary through the more yang expression, the more intellectual expression, saying, hey, what do you want? What do you want out of this course? My intention is that people have more freedom and more health and walk away with more liberation on some level, and a practice that they can actually hang their hat on. So when you guys leave this 7-week course, you'll have a practice that you can engage with every day that's axiomatic, that works, it's self-evident, that becomes like an ally for you. The beginning practice starts with a vision. It's like, what is the vision? And some of you will know it right away and some of you won't. So we'll work on what is the vision? What do you see from a more practical level? How a little bit of coaching, a little bit of problem solving. I'll also set the landscape. I'll introduce you to the different pillars, and underneath the pillars, what are the other things that I'm bringing in? Breathing, visualization, meditation, poetry, and why I'm bringing these things in, why they mean so much to me, and why they're stronger together than separate, in my opinion. Not better, just I like the mutt image rather than the purebred. So, you know, the idea that together these things are very powerful. So the beginning is setting a vision.
Love it. Module 2, use spiritual Qigong to expand your intuition, increase receptivity, and optimize your goals.
So now, once we've set the vision, we're going to do the same thing, but go inward. So the more introspective aspect, how can we start to have knowledge? How can we start to have insight, inner vision, and how those things allow us to become more resilient in a way that is practical, of physically, energetically, emotionally more resilient and able to deal with change. And I'll introduce you to what I'm calling the spiritual Qigong practices. That's a big brushstroke, you guys, and I'm going to narrow it down so you'll know some of the components of what that means to me, because again, all of this is Qigong. All of this is energy building practices. I would say that everything you see at the Shift Network, from my point of view, is Qigong, right? It's all energetic, and we're all moving energy so that we're not stuck in life. So that's a big brushstroke, but we'll narrow it down so you get to know each component and how you can use them in your life.
I love that you're getting into this deeper substratum of what all the methods share. So module 3, awaken the healer with medical Qigong and the 5 elements to cleanse and regulate your body systems, reduce pain, and optimize your organs.
So the 5 element practices that I was taught by my teacher, one of my teachers, Liu Shuyang in China, I love because it has both classic traditional Chinese medicine, how you work with these elements individually, how you work with the elements in a personal practice. I'll introduce some of those things. But again, once you understand them, you can start to share with others. And originally it was taught so that you can train yourself and then you can energetically heal others. In this practice, it will focus more on the self, but you'll naturally find that when you practice a lot, you're going to want to share your energy with other people. And in a sense, it's very much like that original intention of train for yourself to get healthy and then give it away. And I'll discuss also how we can start to do very basic practices to help others in a general way, not necessarily teaching acupuncture method, but how we can use our energy to affect change in our friends and family, which is really fun. If you've ever done medical Qigong or Reiki, some of you will be familiar with this, but how to use your energy to affect others. This morning, my 13-year-old dog was, she's kind of running out of road a little bit, and she was feeling poor, and I just did a little bit of energy work on her at a distance. And every time I do it, even if she's looking away, she'll start to look at me and then go, and fall asleep. She's highly receptive to energy, as most dogs are, most children are. And you'll find that when you learn to do a solo practice and then play with friends and family, you'll get more in touch with how you share this energy and how you can bring it out into the world. So a lot of it goes from solo to dyad, to partner work, to community. And that's sort of a subtext for me. How do we take our solo practice into our intimate relationships, into work, and then into the larger community? So we'll work on that in module 3.
Module 4, use medical Qigong to balance the liver and heart, regulate emotions, and consciously empower your intention.
So I'm breaking this up into 2 modules, both modules focused on medical Qigong. The first one, as I said, is a little bit more the overview and how we can do a solo practice and start to work with others. The second one will get very specific, how we can work with one of the elements. And there are many, but I'll introduce one, and then you'll get an experience of how you can work with the liver, in particular, the wood element. So many people are sad, men in particular, when they don't understand how to, or we don't understand how to express our sadness. It often turns to anger. You see that in the world quite a lot. Anger is related to the wood element in Chinese medicine and the liver. So I thought that was a good place to start, because when we pacify and harmonize the liver, we can become less angry, more in touch with emotions, more grounded. So it's a very good place that most practices address pretty early on. My teacher addressed it right away. Start with the wood element and calm that fire down so that we can be more loving, less angry.
Module 5, empower self-healing and awareness with the warrior archetype to activate strength, aligned action, and mental agility.
So in martial practices, again, even if you don't want to do martial arts, or you've never had that on your radar, learning martial Qigong is a way to allow the body to get very empowered, because it allows us to get connected. You develop mobility, strength, and flexibility. There's a real, they're called body changing exercises. So you see this in Tai Chi, Xingyi, Bagua, and aspects of Qigong, where you're focusing on how you can become physically more robust and more resilient. And I want to introduce some of these practices from Qigong relating to Tai Chi, Xingyi, and Bagua. So all 3 of those are the the gems on the crown of internal martial arts is Tai Chi, Xingyi, and Bagua, those three beautiful Chinese martial arts. Each of those arts has exercises that are in the Qigong world, right? That are health building practices. So we're going to focus on those, how you can get your body strong and resilient through the body changing exercises from Tai Chi, Xingyi, and Bagua.
Module 6, activate flow, presence, and precision with martial Qigong to navigate obstacles and optimize mental, emotional, and physical performance.
So you said a few minutes ago about my work and what I see with the Shift Network is that all of these things are, to me, moving into flow. If you see a chiropractor because you're stuck, he or she will adjust your neck and you flow better. You see an acupuncturist, they'll use needles to get energy flowing. You go to a therapist, they'll work with emotions to get energy flowing if it's emotionally stuck or you're emotionally stuck. All of these things we're working with are vast, but they're doing the same thing. They're moving energy so we can get into what some people call a flow state. A lot of people get into this flow state these days through doing extreme sports, and that, like heavy surfing and snowboarding, and that puts them in this flow, but it's quite dangerous. With Qigong, you can get into the flow state in a very safe, gentle way and allow you to be more harmonious and more in the moment. So this will be focusing on how we get into flow in a reliable way using Qigong through this perspective and this archetype.
Module 7, integrate the wisdom and movements of the visionary, healer, and warrior for sustained health and well-being in your Qigong practice.
So this is where we put it all together, and you guys will take I'll share with you all the exercises and how to put them into a flow that you can practice in the morning or whenever. I suggest morning, so that you have a practice that you can then repeat and get better at. It's also where I'll talk about how these intersect. I'll do it all the way through, but really where they meet each other. All three of these pillars meet and become one. And it's what my teacher called carrying the medicine. So like, how do you take what you've learned and integrate it into your body and then bring it into the world so that you actually have a practice that you can make lasting change with? Sometimes, you do a course like this, and then a few weeks later, it's evaporated. It's like, well, okay, spent all that time and money, and what happened? How do you actually make it work? And that's what I'm going to help you do, is like how you can bring it into your bones and into your heart so you carry the medicine with you. That's my intention with the 7th week.
Beautiful. Well, it's such a beautifully designed architecture here for really integrating these 3 different streams into one coherent practice in our lives. So really great stuff, Matthew. So again, the whole thing is laid out in detail at 3-Pillar Qigong. That's the number 3pillarqigong.com. So in addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Matthew, you're also going to get recordings of every one of those sessions, both video and audio. You'll also get word-for-word transcripts. You'll have practices you can do at home every single week to really integrate the learning. And you'll have a community to help deepen the experience and build bridges really across the world. So on the page, you'll also find a number of extra bonuses that we are happy to include to enhance your journey. There's a PDF guide from Matthew called Discover the Beauty and Healing Potential of 5 Elements Qigong. On the page, you'll also see another bonus is a dialogue between Matthew and Ming Dao Ding called Into the Stillness and Versatility of Meditation. You want to share a little bit more about that bonus?
Yeah, so Ming Dao and I spoke, and he has written many books. He's been teaching Qigong for 40 years and is a lovely practitioner. And we talked about how meditation works in one's life. He shared a lot of his experiences and how he's been looking at meditation from his point of view and through his teacher's point of view for 4 decades. The gift of meditation is to me like Qigong. There's very little one can do to improve it, but it improves everything else in your life. I really feel that way about meditation and Qigong. Like anything you bring it to, it's going to make better. So it's a fun conversation around that. A lot of this work is focused on meditation and breathing, and the bonus materials are focused around that.
Great. And there's also another bonus that's our special bonus when folks sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. And this one also involves meditation. It's called Explore the Many Faces of Meditation with Sacred Energy Arts. There's
a whole set of video practices from Matthew. And Matthew, want to share more about that?
Yeah, I did it right here in my living room. It's about an hour class, and I focused on ways you can meditate both lying, sitting, not both, more than two, lying, sitting, standing, and moving. So meditation from the perspective of sitting, both yin here and more active, from standing, which is what we do in Qigong and martial arts. I do a walking meditation and a little bit of movement. So what blew my mind about this, and it's kind of obvious now to people, but when I first started learning meditation and someone said, oh, you can meditate in all of these ways. In Taoism, it's lying, sitting, standing, moving, even making love. And I was 22, sitting, driving myself nuts, like, come on. It blew my mind, like, oh, I can meditate doing almost anything. And that is the secret of the practice. It's like when we start to open our mind to meditation, it can become something that we do all the time. Meditation, contemplation, introspection, it allows our life to be so much better, right? Get us out of our head into a place of flow. So I share some of those techniques with you guys that I really enjoy.
Amen to that. Well, that's a great extra reason to get signed up right away. And that's your special bonus if you get signed up by midnight. So it's clearly a really beautifully designed and very practical program. And it's the investment is very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay in full up front with 1 payment of $349. The course is going to begin on March 12th and run Tuesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, transcripts, and community as well. And I also encourage you to go to the page and just check out some of the testimonials from students in Matthew's previous course at the Shift Network. Life-changing guidance for all. Wonderful to attend this course. One of the best classes ever with the Shift Network. And I hope Matthew will do a follow-up. So some great testimonials about the value of his teaching and practices. And so you're in really good hands. And you're going to be in for a unique synthesis that, that can have really deep practical and spiritual implications for your life. So again, you can find all the detail at 3pillarqigong, QIGONG.com. So Matthew, we're right at the end of our hour. Anything still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining you for the full program in 3 archetypal pillars of Qigong?
Well, if you guys are on the fence, or you're getting a yes, or you think you're getting a yes, I'd say go for it. I'm very excited about this course. I'm honored to have put this together. It is some things that were handed down from my teachers. I've been very blessed to work with some amazing Qigong practitioners, healers, shaman, have had good fortune to be in good company. And I want to share these practices with you guys. They mean a lot to me. I think that if we can engage in practices that allow us to become more kind, more healthy, more evolved, we're on the right track. I think it's very important these days. Some of these are things that you'll have seen before, and some are very rare, which makes it fun. And I think they're very practical. So yeah, that's the pitch. I hope to see you there. And 2 quotes are coming to me right now. One is from John Cage, be open to what comes next. And the other is Rumi, which is let the beauty you love be what you do. And Stephen, I want to thank you as always. This is really a good opportunity for me to share my work. I think we're all guided to the right place at the right time. And I think it's important for all of us. I think it'll be a win for everyone. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to work with you. And I think it's a beautiful synthesis you've created that really builds upon the spiritual or energetic cross-training principles that we really create a more balanced, integrated, and whole system that can enable us to live healthy, vibrant, and highly impactful lives. So thank you so much for doing all of the groundwork that it took to create the synthesis you're offering. So thank you, Matthew, and thank you all for joining. And you're warmly welcome to go further with Matthew in the brand new program at 3pillarqigong.com, and you'll get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight.
Thanks, everyone.
So many blessings. Thank you.